Hi everyone, welcome to Mindful Adventures. Freedom is probably one of the most highly valued and prized possessions that I think as human beings we share worldwide, and whether it's the freedom of speech, the of freedom for love, freedom of expression, um, freedom to be yourself, and freedom to just experience and enjoy life in all of its various dimensions. And we've seen that when that freedom is restricted or infringed upon, that creates suffering. And this, of course, isn't, I'm not saying anything that's a novel idea. This is something you look around the world and we see globally, there's suffering everywhere, and this is one of the causes of that suffering. So I believe that everyone really, on an individual, level, can um, has the right and owes oneself, have to give oneself permission to inquire into one's own freedom. Even if you don't have let's say wherever you're located, there's a restriction on the freedom of speech, then yet and still you can, be to yourself and do self-inquiry and ask, okay, see, where am I free? Where am I not free? And who is the self, the I, the idea that I take myself to be that feels a lack of freedom? This is in my experience and my understanding, I think this is a basic human right. Out of all of the rights that are out there that our institutions are fighting for, the right to inquire into one's own existence and perceptions of, oneself and how freedom is being experienced. I think that's a basic human right. And so, free will, the will to live, the will to love, the will to be whatever and however you would like to be. Freedom in and of itself is just naturally free. The will itself is naturally free. And so when it comes to the human being, I think that we share this longing for freedom, and we share this, our valuing, how much we value freedom, because the human being is freedom itself. Consciousness is freedom. It's intrinsic to consciousness. And the human being as an appearance, as consciousness, would naturally seek and search and, try and grasp a hold of that freedom. But when the will is being held captive, by memory or an imagination, by past memory bank in the mind, or imaginations in the mind of the future, when the will is held captive between these two polarities, then the ability to make a conscious, free choice in the here now is greatly compromised. And we see that and I've seen, just in my life and in my journey, that when the attention is diverted back and forth, between memory and imagination, that over time this movement, this oscillation really between memory and imagination, the faster it goes and the more rapid it appears, then suddenly there's dreaming. And the eyes can be wide open, but the reality of what is here now is denied in exchange for the dream that's created by this movement of attention between memory and imagination. And this rapid movement between these two polarities gives rise to one of the greatest illusions of our time, and to really one of the most cunning creatures in all of the land, and that is the ego, the illusion and the dream of there being an individualized, separate self that is fixed in this existence, that is limited to one's own, its own beliefs about itself and the world around, and all of one's experiences, which are colored by this ego identification, what gives rise to the I, as in I am, that experience ends up being illusory, because it's just memory and imagination that is preventing one from seeing what is here now. And in that comes the suffering. In that comes, living in what may feel like it's a time loop, self-destructive behaviors that repeat themselves, negative thinking patterns that repeat itself. Actually, it's the nature of a pattern, is repetition, so. But to give oneself permission to investigate and see. The eyes are open, but is what I see the simple nature of things? And this question can only be approached once this rapid movement, this rapid oscillation between memory and imagination, which gives rise to the chattering mind, the incessant chattering mind that goes on following, that so many experience, that I think most people on the planet have experienced, is even in the moment where there's no need to calculate, even in the moment where there's no need to make a certain decision or choice, or something that actually requires our built-in biocomputer, our great calculator, that even in those times when there's really nothing but silence, the sound of the chattering mind and the visions of this chattering mind pollute and prevent the eyes from seeing, and prevent oneself from seeing the non-existence, really, of the fixed identity that is created by this illusion, the non-existence of this being that we maybe for so long take ourselves to be. And of course, in that is suffering, and that suffering is compounded and reinforced time and time again by this rapid oscillation in us not just stopping, slowing down, coming to a complete stop, and witnessing it, right? And being able to sit and face oneself and face the chaos of one's own mind and heart and the emotions that of course the mind can use our sensory perceptions. It will use the five senses to be able to make certain decisions and judgments about the environment that we live in. But this is where, the spiritual practices really come in. All of the beautiful religions, and despite the fact that there has been an institutionalization of the true knowledge, that it's been institutionalized and packaged in so many different ways, that definitely, most definitely, to me, does not reduce the beauty and the tremendous just blessing and treasures that are hidden in all of these different teachings and all of the different paths that are out there. And so, I say that no matter what your faith is, no matter which path you're on, and even if you're on, what's called in Tao the pathless path, that yet and still there's a hidden treasure that's there and that's readily available for you. And mindfulness and meditation are one of those treasures. Mindfulness and meditation is really the gift, the ability to be able to stop and to slow down this movement, this rapid movement between memory and imagination. Because as long as the will is directed to one or the other, and it's, and it's, we cling there with our attention, then once again, the ability to make a conscious choice to love, without having to go through a lot of, chronically logical reasoning and the but this and that, and you know how we've all done this before. We all know. we know what it is. The rationalizations and the things that we do to keep ourselves safe and to really to not be vulnerable. But that conscious choice for vulnerability is only possible. That conscious choice for awakening really is only possible when the will is set free from the grips of both memory and imagination to be able to move freely and see what is here now. And so this is where the mindfulness comes in. This mindfulness can really, as a practice, it allows a person to slow things down just a little bit and become aware of one's body, mind, and the senses, and how all of the different perceptions are appearing, in time and space, both internally, externally, just all around, total seeing and witnessing of one's experience. But then there comes a point too where this has to be, one encounters, I'd say, a deeper level beyond just the sensory perceptions, like taste, touch, sound, so on and so forth, hearing, whatever. And that's the mind, the chattering mind, the mind that tells the stories, the mind that makes excuses, the mind that finds reasons, the mind that, really, for so many, it creates a tremendous amount of suffering. I'd say that most of the suffering that exists is self-created, in the sense that the way that the mind is perceiving, when the will is trapped in one polarity or the other polarity, then of course the denial of what is here and what is before one's eyes, just like they say, I don't know if you've heard this before, but a rose is a rose is a rose. Is a rose love? Is a rose Valentine's Day? Is a rose red all the time? I'm sure you've seen different color roses. Is a rose anything else but a rose? But see, this is where it really takes a natural medicine. I'd say this is the natural medicine, mindfulness, to slow down that movement and be present to what is here. And so oftentimes, I've heard people say, well, I've done mindfulness, a little bit here and a little bit there, or I've tried it for a while, and while I got this, and I did meditation and I got this, sense of peace, but it never lasts. And so here's the thing about that. The reason why the things that you may have experienced through mindfulness or meditation, the reason why it does not last is because life is impermanence. Okay? And this is one of the hardest things that I think is for in our human nature, to accept, is that life is impermanence, and mindfulness isn't really designed to give you something that you do not already have. People say, okay, well, I want to get a quiet mind, so I'm going to do mindfulness in order to, in order to know myself, or in order to gain quietness. But this is the wrong attitude. This is the wrong approach to mindfulness. The right mindfulness, right attentiveness, actually is more of an allowance of all of one's perceptions, thoughts, feelings, and desires to have their play, and in that, once those perceptions move out the way, you see that which is already there, your wholeness, your completeness, your fullness, your silence, the vast silence that extends beyond anything that you can see with your eyes. It is beyond name and form, beyond narrative, beyond illusions, beyond really beliefs and opinions, and it is something that can be realized with sustained practice and experienced. And not just, of course, an experience. If an experience comes, an experience goes, but in one really getting clarity on the truth of their being and the true nature, the true self, not the cunning one that is the imposter that prevents the eyes from seeing through and through. In that comes a great liberation and really the true understanding of oneself as consciousness, one self, meaning not myself or yourself, one self. All is the self. All is consciousness. And so, yeah, give yourself the opportunity. Give yourself the permission to explore. Even if it's, let's say you really don't have a desire to explore. Let's say you're, if you think, okay, well, this is the way things have always been, and, the suffering and all of that, and the story about yourself and others, and, if you're happy in that, and I'm not trying to be sarcastic or anything, there really are, beings who maybe in this lifetime, they don't get to taste and see for themselves. They don't give themselves an opportunity to be still because, clinging to the beliefs of one's illusions, really can mummify the self in a way. It mummifies the being to be crystallized as something that he or she is not. But I don't know. I'm a very hopeful, the optimistic type in a way that because I've seen, I've tasted and seen. It's my living experience of what is possible. What is possible when one gives oneself the permission to stop, be still, and know. Will you know your God? Will you know, whether it's God, Brahman, Atman, whatever you want to call it, makes no difference. Give yourself that stillness. Give yourself that opportunity. And yeah, I guess you should all be blessed, really. May we all beings be blessed with the courage, really, the courage to stop and inquire, the courage to stop and be mindful. And, some would actually even say that self-inquiry is enough, to go to, a teacher or a coach or a leader and just do inquiry. And the truth of the matter is, inquiry is enough, and no meditation technique is needed because meditation is your being. Freedom is you. You are consciousness. We, all, all is the self. But with the mindful adventure, I don't say one or the other, I say both. That mindfulness, meditativeness, and self-inquiry, that this is a very potent combination for not only one to, get the benefits of, okay, well now my mind is quiet and I have less stress and more peace and all of those different things, but something much, much, much more, much, much more deep and exquisite, that does not come and go with experiences, does not come and go with perceptions, but when consciousness is able to recognize itself, when all of the noise is out of the way, then one touches upon their own namelessness, formlessness, and the tremendous, vast presence of your being. So I started to say a blessing a moment ago, and then I stopped halfway through, but you get the point. So may all beings really come to come to see their true selves as one self, consciousness, and give yourself permission to do so. Namaste.